Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome today's program, Glenn Jones, who's GVP of Product Strategy and Marketing at Blume Global. And today we're going to talk about technology's role in enabling supply chain sustainability. Now, more than 15 years ago, Walmart CEO at the time, Lee Scott, gave a speech titled 21st Century Leadership that arguably kicked off the supply chain sustainability era. And over the years, some companies have made sustainability a priority, while others, have not. So what is the current state of supply chain sustainability? Are there, current factors or trends that are driving, its focus to increase? And if so, what are some of those factors? And how is technology helping companies achieve their sustainability goals? Well, those are some of the questions we're going to address in today's episode. And it's great to have Glenn on the program to share his insights and advice on this topic. So Glenn, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Adrian. I appreciate it. And, we here at Blume Global are very focused on sustainability. It's a top of mind for us. And as importantly, it's very top of mind for our customers today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I think this is a very timely, relevant topic because, obviously there's been a lot of discussion with, the pandemic and obviously in recent days, the Suez Canal and the ship there. But sustainability has been something, like I just said, that has been, been talked about, has been an area of focus for now many, many years. And I think, I think we're going to continue to see, if anything, increased focus and attention, in this area. But before we kind of dive into those details, you and I have known each other for a long time, but you're a first time guest here on Talking Logistics. So like I always like to do, I'm always curious. I don't think I even asked you this in the past. I'm always curious how people get involved in this industry to begin with. So maybe as a way to start, why don't you share a little bit about your career path, how and why you got involved in this industry, and again, what your current role and responsibilities are there at Blume Global?
Yeah, well, thanks, Adrian. So I have been developing software or leading teams to develop software in this industry for a little over 20 years, I guess. I started my career way back at Raytheon, building interesting systems that probably can't talk about. But coming out, and these were very complex systems, and but my degree and early background's all industrial engineering and supply chain. So I joined i2 Technologies back in the late 90s, phenomenal company, did really well, learned a lot about supply chain through that. And then I've worked in a variety of startups since then. And we were some of the first companies to come out with SaaS offerings in supply chain execution. I was at One Network, E2 Open running engineering, who co-founded a company called Elementum that is also, a great company in this area. Anyways, and then I wound up at Blume about 2.5 years ago, I guess. I'd worked with Pravinder Johar, CEO, in the past at another company, and we grew it and sold it. So I love the logistics. I love the execution part. I built kind of planning systems also, but I find these systems are, they're mission critical. They're absolutely essential to customers. If we go down for any reason, then our customers start losing money. So I like that thrill. I like that kind of startup feel. So Pravinder has kind of reinvented Blume, rebranded it, and we really, while we've been in business 26 years, we are running like a startup today. 70% of our headcount is R&D. And so we're very much an R&D company. We're focused on delivering value out to our customers and a software as a service platform. So, that's a little bit about Blume. Look at the news, and we'll talk about this maybe at a different time, but we just introduced a new technology called Blume Maps, and we're very proud of what we're doing there. Anyway, so that's a little bit about me and a little bit about Blume.
Yeah, no, great career journey. I think you and I go back to the i2 days, so that's
Yep.
certainly going back, some time, and certainly I've worked with Pravinder in the past as well, and I think the area that you're focused in right now is certainly in the spotlight today with everything going on and from a global logistics standpoint and transportation standpoint. So let's get now into the topic, sustainability. Like I talked about, in my opening comments. Companies have been talking about supply chain sustainability for many years, but is it becoming a growing priority today? And if so, what's kind of driving that renewed focus?
Yeah, so I think during the pandemic, it subsided a little bit. So our main markets are certainly kind of what we call the shipper market or the industrial manufacturing and high tech electronics, retail, but also our core markets are the freight forwarders or logistics service providers, and also the carriers, the large ocean carriers. And it kind of took a back seat during 2020, like a lot of other things did. But there's no question this year, our customers are coming to us and saying, hey, this is a high priority. One of the things that we've been asked to do is become carbon neutral ourselves. So we have our own internal initiatives in order to continue to do business. And of course, we want to do this anyways. So we've, pulled in an external company to go analyze what all we're doing. And of course, not many people are driving into work these days, so that doesn't really count. But the other things that we're doing in our hosting centers and things like that, and so we're going to wind up providing funding back into carbon neutral initiatives. And our customers are the same way. We are now having to build into our products, and we can talk more about that. Ways for our customers to see how much carbon emissions are they actually driving back in by carrier selections and selecting certain kinds of routes and things like that. So they want visibility into that so they can make better decisions. And so it's kind of that those are the kind of things we're being asked to do.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, it sounds like even in your own case, it's your customers that are helping to drive, that move and that focus. And I'm hearing the same thing from a lot of, companies as well. A lot of it is driven by, particularly the younger consumers, right, that have become much more sensitive, and whether the environment and sustainability is arguably a higher priority or something that they're more in tune with than perhaps, let's say, folks that are our age or older, right? But I think even across the board, I think people have become much more informed and much more concerned about what's happening, with the environment, and that's playing a role in not only in kind of positioning their brands to be socially responsible, and that's a broad category there, but it's something that they're finding. I'm kind of curious in your experience as well. Even folks that when they're looking for a new position or where they're hiring, they want to know whether the company that they're interviewing for, what their sustainability initiatives are, what their role is, and so forth. And that's becoming something that young employees are looking at when they're considering which jobs to take.
Absolutely. Of course, I live in the Bay Area. And you could probably consider that a pretty liberal area. And there's no question that the engineers that we try to recruit, they are asking questions like that. They want to come in and they want to understand, what are we doing to help our environment? It's a good and easy story for us because we're kind of foremost there. But I'm even finding we're building large organizations now in India. And we're getting those questions there too. So it's worldwide. It's not just in the United States. It's not just US and Europe, but it's pretty much worldwide. These people want to know, how are you contributing back, and what are you doing to support sustainability?
Right. And I think even over the years, I think moving forward, I mean, you are seeing regulations that are helping to drive this as well. You're seeing even the investment community, investors kind of serving as a catalyst for this as well. So I think it's coming from multiple angles. So it's kind of bringing it down to the kind of supply chain. I mean, as you look across the supply chain, I mean, where are the biggest opportunities for companies to make a difference in this area?
Yeah, so we see there's two big contributors in when we talk about supply chain. I mean, we really focus on logistics. We're not manufacturing and MES systems and things like that. I mean, obviously factory emissions, but for, where we are, it's the vehicle emissions, and it's also the empty miles. So those are the two big areas that are the prime targets for us, and how we can help inform our customers in their decision-making process about, what can they do to really make better selections across the carrier market. The ocean industry in 2018, I think IMO kind of put out stipulations saying that, they had to go to low sulfur fuels. And so that was a huge for the ocean industry. And of course, different ocean liners took different techniques. Some of them just said, okay, I'm going to buy the low sulfur fuels and use my existing engines, and other ones put scrubbers on that, and kind of at the time, that was kind of the major thing to do. But knowing which one of those two approaches on, and it's really on a vessel by vessel basis. So you have to kind of get down into the details. But those are, kind of, and of course, railroads are big in our industry too. And the railroads are definitely very conscious about the new locomotives they buy at the Class 1 railroads in the U.S. They take that into consideration. And being able to integrate those kind of statistics back into a system where, it not only provides the cost, and it provides how fast you're going to get to the destination, but you also want to see the carbon footprint. What is that carbon footprint for that particular route going from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam to, Berlin, or to, Chicago or Indianapolis? And so that's what those are the ways that we can inform and help educate our customers or enable them to make better selections throughout. And so those are it's really important to be able, and the empty miles part is all about, how can you reduce the empty miles? And there's all kinds of, algorithms that we have come up with. Part of it is the trucking industry and moving cargo throughout the U.S. and Europe and other nations. The other part of it, and where we're really big in, is getting cargo, over ocean in through rail, into the hinterlands or inside the inland terminals, and once that cargo gets in and is emptied or is unloaded, that container, that 40-foot container or 20-foot marine container, has to go back on rail to the port. Then it goes from the port back to the source, typically empty. And so we have a couple of different programs. One of the big programs we have is, we call it domestic reload. And so because of the imbalance in the United States of imports to exports, there's like 5% exports to the imports. You can't always find an export load to match with an import load. For that fact, 95% of the time. So we have other programs. We call it domestic reload. We work with the railroads, and we work with the largest ocean carriers to match and being able to use that 40-foot container for a domestic move that's maybe heading back to Savannah from Chicago, or heading back to LA or Oakland, areas like that. And we work closely with the ocean carriers to, try to make sure that return load has a cargo. And we introduced this program several years ago, but, just to show you the focus now, it has grown exponentially in the last year. I mean, it's really amazing how much, and we provide the platforms to kind of market these empty containers. That's one of the things that mainly for domestic loads that Blume does, and it's taken off like a rocket lately. So it's really done a lot to reduce those empty miles.
Yeah, that example, points to a problem that's historically plagued the transportation industry really across all modes, and that is just, the amount of waste and inefficiency, that exists with, empty miles being, its main symptom. And I think that obviously that's an area where, technology, increased visibility, optimization technology is all helping to kind of, reduce that waste and inefficiency, which again, I mean, historically, I think you would only think of it in terms of, what will be the cost impact, what's the cost impact of that waste and inefficiency? What's the service impact of that waste and inefficiency? But now there's the added dimension of what is the carbon impact? What is the
Yep.
sustainability impact to that? That's adding, more impetus to, address these issues. You talked about some examples in the ocean industry and rail. Obviously in the trucking realm, you're seeing this move towards electric vehicles, right? And
Exactly.
that's something that I think UPS and FedEx have been focused on a lot in terms of converting a lot of their vans into electric vehicles, and they've stated some goals in that area. And then even just the Class 8 trucks, moving towards that reality as well. So I think we're going to continue to see the transportation industry itself, to your point, this becoming a priority for them as well. So it's not just shippers, it's also the carriers themselves that are investing in this, right?
They have to. I mean, it's essential that the carriers invest, and they're doing it. And maybe different ones at the different pace, but from the steamship lines to the railroads to the aircraft, I mean, they're all, and of course we deal with these major miles, and that's where, we really focus, but also the trucking, like you said, the electric trucks, and again, it's kind of that making sure that that's visible, so you can so that everyone can take advantage of those new technologies, and by making it visible, it really allows the different carriers to promote their services and promote it in a way of not only cost efficiencies but also in sustainability.
Right. No, great point. So, I mean, you've already, provided some examples, but I mean, are there other ways that technology can help companies achieve, their supply chain sustainability goals?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of elaborate a little more on, so again, I mean, while we do some FTL and LTL, a lot of what we do is kind of moving cargo into and out of rail ramps, seaports, and airports, and kind of that, we call it the first mile and the last mile, a little different from the last mile for the retail industry, but that's kind of our last mile. And of course, the other thing is being able to we call them street turns, and the LTL and FTL industry, they'd call it route optimization, and essentially it's a different form of route optimization. So being able to match outbound moves with inbound moves, and there's all kinds of savings there too. Certainly the sustainability part of it. So a straight turn essentially is, if I have an outbound move from a rail ramp going to, maybe the rail ramps in Chicago, a lot of rail ramps there, and it's going to Indianapolis, and then there's also an inbound move going from a neighboring city back. We look across all of our customers and our carriers and do a matching algorithm on that to try to match those inbound. And then we do the coordination with whoever the customer is to make sure that, that they can actually do that matchup, and that all the financial part of it works out, which a lot of times is challenging because, as we all know, there's the truck, and then there's the container, and then there's the chassis, and each one of them tend to be owned by a different company, and the financial thing, in addition to all the kind of other aspects of accounting, have to work out. So I think for us, those are the kind of the key technologies, making companies aware, and then and trying to leverage our visibility across the entire supply chain, the transportation supply chain, to do matching on the domestic and on the and we continue to invest very heavily there. In another area, of course, is kind of that the route optimization itself, and applying kind of traditional optimization techniques, but also with a lot of the so one of the things we invest heavily in is trying to make our customers more agile, and that's becoming more important in being able to deliver the products into the market, because typical order lead time on our products is, with our customers, is 37 to 40 days. And so the dynamics of the market change within that as the cargo comes across the ocean. The reason it's so long is because it involves an ocean journey and then maybe a rail journey and then finally into the into the end destination. So we in this the newer technology like Blume Maps, we look for the right kind of routes and we look at that dynamically. And for example, as the cargo comes into the port of Long Beach, and it's inevitably late these days because of all the backup at Long Beach and LA, so you're at least 5 or 7 days late. And now you're going to go through a transload facility and, okay, maybe it was going to go on rail, but maybe it's more effective to go on truck. And again, looking at those different options, or maybe you want to take a subset of the cargo and convert it over to an express carrier, UPS, FedEx, DHL, to get it to its destination. And of course, providing that kind of agility in the supply chain is essential these days. And our freight forwarder customers and our carrier customers are all kind of going in the same direction. We're enabling that, but kind of going back to the sustainability, as you look at making those changes, our algorithms take into consideration what is the new carbon footprint on that new route. And so, those are other areas of heavy investment for Blume.
Yeah, and I would think that that last point, having that visibility or making that calculation in terms of what the carbon footprint impact would be of option A versus option B versus option C. I mean, I think that's what historically has been missing, right? Because people just, you may have intuitively known or said, okay, this probably is going to be because it's going more by truck than by rail or whatever. On a per unit basis, it's probably going to be more carbon intensive or so forth. But, like anything else, unless you actually measure it or have some kind of number associated with it, it's very hard to, truly justify or understand, what that impact is. So I think really for many companies, I think that very first step is really just to have that visibility to what the current baseline is, and then understanding what the impact is based relative to all these different options that they may be faced with on a day-to-day basis, so that they can, they may perhaps, depending on what their goals are as a company or so forth, they may opt to go for a higher cost because it's a lower carbon footprint in some cases. In other cases, they may say, what, we're going to, in this case, opt for the lower cost, higher carbon footprint because of whatever reasons, right? But at least you've got all the data and you're able to make, a more informed, complete decision than, not really understanding what the environmental impact is, right?
Yeah, that's, it's, our carrier selection algorithm is, it's big, continue to add intelligence to it. It already has carbon emissions or as a criteria, and different customers can weight the different criterias, cost, on-time performance, carbon emissions, and we are seeing the carbon emissions weight start to go up a little bit more. So that's a real indicator that these companies are very serious. The logistics service providers are very serious about taking that into consideration. So that's.
So kind of related to that, I mean, so it seems like that's happening in terms of selecting carriers or maybe as part of the procurement engagement or so forth. I mean, are you seeing companies, including supply chain sustainability as part of their business case for, deploying supply chain software, right? So if they're kind of building the business case for a TMS or a logistics technology platform, are you seeing companies put sustainability as one of the, justifications for it? Yeah.
Yes, especially the logistics service provider market. I mean, I think it'll eventually get into the, into the shipper market, the high-tech electronics and manufacturing. We haven't seen it so much there, but definitely in the freight forwarder and the RFPs coming through there and our conversations with those customers, they're taking it very seriously. And a lot of those companies are really headquartered in Europe. If you think about it, there's, certainly North America has their share, and there's some in China, but the ones that we see it mostly are these companies that are headquartered out of Europe, Germany, and the Scandinavian countries.
Yep. Yep. No, interesting. Well, we've kind of covered a lot of ground, but we're running a little bit short on time here. So just as
Yeah.
a way to wrap up, Glenn, I mean, when it comes to, supply chain sustainability, I mean, which capabilities will separate the leaders from the laggards moving forward?
Oh, it's got to be, initially, as we said, transparency. It's got to be able to see what's going on there and to be able to, we do see, I kind of have this vision at some point you pick up I'll just use a can of peas and you turn it around and you look at the label. It's got the carb and it's got the sugar, it's got or carbohydrates, the sugars, all the good stuff and bad stuff for you. And down at the bottom, it's going to have that little label saying, what was the carbon footprint of delivering this can of peas. So I think, we kind of, and everybody will be competing as that is a part of that criteria. So, I think enabling that to happen is kind of subliminally some of the ways, we kind of think about that these days.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I've seen some efforts already in that vision that you have. I mean, I think people are already developing, different kind of apps where you can, scan the barcode or scan a QR code and then kind of see what the
Yep.
journey, of that product, and then obviously carbon footprint, being one of the dimensions that gets reported on. But I think you're right. I think that's kind of where I think that's the end goal, for a lot of companies is having that kind of, transparency and visibility all the way down to the unit product level,
Yep.
and making it
Awareness. Yep.
transparent for, consumers in terms of understanding, that becoming another element for them in terms of their buying, decisions. Glenn, like I always say, we managed to scratch the surface on these topics. Obviously, this is a topic that,
Yes.
has so many different, dimensions and elements, to it. But certainly it's a topic that I think we're going to continue to talk about and focus on in the weeks and months and years ahead for sure. So again, thank you for making the time to be with us today and kind of sharing your perspective and advice on it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure, Adrian. It's wonderful talking to you. And people love your show. I love your show. We watch it all the time. So look forward to continue to work with you on this.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and certainly look forward to having you again on the program in the not too distant future.
Sure.
I want to thank those of you that joined us. If you're watching this show on demand, either at the Blume Global website or on Talking Logistics, and you've got a question or a comment for Glenn, you can post it there, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you for joining
Absolutely.
us, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.